Hello, let's explore why exams are immoral and anti-science. Let's do this by looking at the things that we teach in school. One of them is scientific practice. Here is an experiment where two chemicals will be tested in these two test tubes, and the results will decide which chemical we use in the future. But the scientists and the science teachers all call this an unfair test, because unless I can guarantee both test tubes are clean, my results are seen as meaningless, and the scientists would say I have wasted my time with an unfair test. Another thing that we teach in schools, both through our value systems and our physical education, is that it was quite right to ban the Russian Olympic team for competing when it was discovered that they were using performance enhancement that other athletes did not have access to. This unfair test was seen as corrupt and immoral. So my first question is, why do schools run a scientifically and a morally unfair test as one event called an exam? Because education turns a blind eye to the conditions each student was prepared for the test in, i.e. home life, the scientists would proclaim the results of every school exam to be meaningless, if there was to be any suggestion that they were measuring ability. If one student has had 5 years of performance-enhancing private tuition outside school, the scientists would say it's even more anti-scientific, and the Olympic Committee would ban that student from the test. So let's look at what exams claim to be doing. That of measuring ability. Around the world, in these supposed ability measuring tests, females outperform males in a vast majority of cases. As an example, here in New Zealand, where I work, 17-year-olds across the country sat down for any 5 of the 12 available math exams in 2020. Some of these assessments were in class and marked by teachers to be moderated by others. Some of these assessments were exam conditions and marked by external exam markers. Some of these 12 assessments were calculus and algebra, while some were statistics. If these so-called ability measurements were doing the job, it would be very unlikely female students would outperform male students in every assessment of all types, as they did. Unless you want to conclude that women are of simply higher ability in maths across the board, we have to conclude the results of these assessments did not report on the ability in maths. So what did they report on? The reality, as shown by the results within schools and across schools in any country, is that your home life decides your results within any standard school assessment scenario. The first most significant indicator is the willingness that exists in your home for you to do well at the school system and support you to do so. You may be rich or poor, but significant interest in school success will result most of the time in that success to some extent coming true. But willingness to support success at school is heavily dependent and impacted by your home's ability to do so. It is easier to have the willingness to do well if you have the confidence your life around you will support you to do so. It is easier to have the willingness to do well at school if you have the extra support like private tuition and/or vastly greater numbers of experiences and adventures outside school. As already mentioned, gender plays another significant role in results globally, indicating yet further the fallacy to the idea that schools test ability. Last and very much least is the impact that your school has on your results. The school, in its standardized approach to most students, is almost powerless to compete against the impact of your home life's willingness and ability to play the academic school game. So let's quickly look at why schools could have possibly made normal such an elitist, corrupt and anti-science approach. Let us explore what schools are designed to do. To this day, lessons, subjects, classrooms and exams are the core of what school is designed to do, and this was normalised over the first half of the 20th century. This design became the norm in a period when 9 out of 10 school leavers were only required to read instructions, count, measure and do what they were told. The last thing the farmer, the military commander, the factory manager or the shopkeeper wanted was an employee with personal critical thought. In many cases, personal ideas would have been seen as dangerous in that situation. 1 in 10 students would go on to the later stages of education, but they were also not destined to become decision makers and thinkers. They just had to prove they were good at paperwork by passing exams. If in 2020 it seems like Donald Trump and Boris Johnson in the UK prove that we still live in a world where you get to the top through your connections to privilege, imagine what it must have been like before the Second World War. So the question millions of educators ask is, why does this not change? This I put down to a combination of the things I have mentioned already with what I term as generational inertia. If your home is what's going to decide your school results, and your household is determined for you to do so, then your supportive guardians at home need to be very aware of how the school game is conducted and where its priorities lie. This means that the minority of determined mums and dads across the world who are the most vocal when arguing for the status quo do so because it means they can assist their child to win a game that they know. Any threats to change the school system is a threat to those already poised to apply their privilege by knowing they can help their child win the game. So while schools remain frozen in time within the corrupt and unscientific system of privilege, the world has decided to move on without us. Every year, increasing numbers of companies, like the ones pictured here, are announcing that they will consider all applicants regardless of qualifications, because they have found qualifications do not correlate with identifying which people will be best for them. So to conclude, we must consider exams only measure home life, support privilege, ignore inequity. They were designed to be elitist in the first place, they are anti-science, they have no relation to life, and they are not valued by any industry in the 21st century. It is time to make school an equitable system of personalised learning progress that truly engages and involves the learner in who they are, rather than an elitist, anti-science, corrupt, non-thinking, anti-learning support system for the privileged few. Thank you very much.